always fun to partner up on events like these and kind of bring different business communities together and share insights amongst, all the different people that, both of our communities have. And yeah, so as Angela said, ShapeConnect, we're a business-to-business matching platform. So we try to simplify the process for companies to find the right experts and vendors to achieve their business goals and take the burden off of all the research involved in that process and, representing, our company's interests when working with vendors to make sure that they really have the right partner, fair price points, all of that, as they work to grow their business and improve their business. So, today, lucky that two of the partners from our platform, Mark Kennedy, who is a virtual CIO, technology expert, is joining us, and he's going to talk about IT strategies for, early and growth stage companies. And then we have Guillermo Figueredo, which I think I got kind of right there. He's a marketing expert and a website expert, does a lot with WordPress and getting the right integrations for your website to provide the best possible customer experience. And then also the support to drive people to the website. So he has a great team of people that help as well. So with that, I will let them give a brief introduction of themselves, and then Guillermo can kick it off with his presentation.
Okay. So I'm gonna, hello to everyone. Let me just share the screen. Let me know if you can share, if you can see the presentation now.
See it.
Perfect. Okay, so without further ado, well, as Brian did a really good introduction about me and the company, I'm the founder of Awesome Web Designs. We try to be a 360 solution for startups and organizations, a team of developers and designers, copywriters, and we try to eliminate the need of having you to work with multiple agencies. As Brian highlighted, I have over 8 years of experience working with WordPress systems for startups and small, medium companies. And my passion or my focus is good web design. That's what I always try to achieve with all the different projects that I work. So at the end of this presentation, I would like you to be able to answer to these 4 questions. They are divided in these 4 points. What is the difference between web development and web design? What are the differences between domain name, web hosting, and email hosting? What is a CMS and its benefits? And what is the difference between on-page and off-page SEO? So let's start with the first one. The web designer versus the web developer. Some people might think it's the same, but they're completely different roles. So the web designer is basically the artist, the creator behind the website. Is the one that is going to create the layout, the visibility, the one that have the experience in UX and UI. And the web developer is the one that once you have those guidelines and those instructions and those visuals, is going to transform that into code using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, any coding language that is needed. Here, I just wanted to highlight kind of like the basic principles, but the main thing is like the web designer, it's good if they have a basic knowledge on HTML and CSS at least, and obviously UX, UI principles, and knowing how to manage wireframing tools and software and design software tools to create those concepts. And then the web development role is divided in 2 different aspects. You have the front web developer and the back-end web developer. If we think of like a website as like a informational site that a restaurant needs just to have a set of like recipes and their menu online, a front-end developer could do that following the instruction of the web designer and put that into code. But the back-end developer could be that, for example, if what you want to achieve is a website that has a business directory with a bunch of different restaurants as a search engine, and you need to pull their data from an external database, is the back-end developer the one that is going to integrate that database with your site. So if you have both skills, then you would be considered a full stack developer. The same here, the web developer pretty much is going to use these different coding languages, and then it's good if they know the procedures on how to test the new features that you're going to add and create a staging environment. And the same way as like debugging, what it means is like if you find a problem on your site, they're going to know how to find the problem and how to find a solution. And it's recommended if they have a basic knowledge on content managed systems, which is something I'm going to talk later, and SEO, because the SEO consultant is going to be talking directly to this role. Let's move again with the next point. So now we know the difference between web design and web development. There are 3 points here that maybe most of you are familiar with that I want to clarify. Now, what is domain name versus web hosting and email hosting? When you're setting a website, basically the domain name is the address of your website, and the web hosting is the place where your files are located. So if you think it as your house is the web hosting, and the address of your house is the domain name, okay? For email hosting, it's pretty much just like really similar to web hosting, but it's all the data that only has to do with your email. Personally, I like to work with a web hosting provider, a different company, and then an email hosting provider, different, just simply because I believe that they cannot be best at both things, and I just would like to go to like the special company. Now in email hosting, I go with, for example, Google, that everybody knows, Gmail and G Suite is the pro version, and with web hosting, I like to work with SiteGround, for example. Third point, what is a CMS? No, content managed system. So as it says here, it's a software tool to create, administer, and manage a website. But basically, the most important thing here is like you can do all that without the technical expertise. And what is also called the no-code or the low-code approach. Basically, anybody could start managing and administer a website with a CMS, and that's kind of like the key point of this. Well, what are all the main benefits? Well, basically, that makes it more affordable for anybody to start building a website because you don't have to build the framework from scratch. You already have kind of like that back end done for you. It has a fast learning curve because it's specifically designed for you without any technical skills to learn how to manage it fast. And then you have a huge amount of integrations, plugins, and APIs that, in other words, are like pieces of code that has features that you can include to your CMS easily and affordable. And then also a big amount of like themes and templates, so you can pretty much create a high-end concept design on your website in a really fast and affordable way. I just wanted to highlight here like the most popular CMS, which are WordPress, Shopify, and Webflow. I personally have never worked with Webflow, but I know it's one of the most popular in the last few years. And because I don't have experience with that, I would like just to kind of like compare WordPress and Shopify that I have experience with. So let's start with WordPress. Basically, I'm going to be a little bit biased because this is my favorite one. This is where I've been working for the last pretty much my entire career. But the reasons behind it are the following. No, the main thing is like it's an open source CMS, which means that it's free and everybody can add new things to the CMS. It's kind of like made by volunteers, and it's shaping constantly. It's evolving with the new trends. It's amazing in that aspect. And it says, different sources may say differently, but about 1 in 5 sites on the internet use WordPress, and companies like the New York Times and eBay are the ones using WordPress, for example. Another advantage that I find maybe the most important one is like it has a huge community, and that brings a lot of like functionalities like plugins and themes, support that you can get easy, a lot of things that are pretty handy to have when you are actually not that skilled in the web development side. And lastly, and not less important, is like WordPress. When it started about 15 years ago, it was just a blog platform, and that means that it was specifically designed to be liked by Google. So it means that it's a really nice way, it might be the best and fastest way to get traffic to your site if you build something on WordPress. And now I just want to kind of like compare WordPress versus Shopify, and giving you a little bit of like why would you go on a Shopify framework versus a WordPress CMS. No? So the first main difference is WordPress, you have 2 options. You can go with a self-hosted approach, means that you go on SiteGround, you sign up on a web hosting plan, and then you make the WordPress install. And you don't have to pay to WordPress on a monthly basis for that. It's free. and you have the ownership of the software that you're using. Or you can go with the hosted WordPress approach that you have to pay a monthly fee, like in Shopify, and then you just can start right away working on the website. Shopify, on the other hand, only has this option that is pretty much you have to pay a monthly fee. They are the owners of the software, and the moment that you stop paying this fee, then you don't have access to that software anymore. Okay, but you don't need to get any external hosting. It's all located under Shopify. What are all the main differences? Well, basically, WordPress is designed for people that are somewhat familiar to web design or have some expertise in web development or have the budget to hire a web designer and a web developer. You could still maybe only need a web designer if you go with like tools like Beaver Builder and Elementor that are called the drag and drop builders. So that makes it kind of like less complex and faster to build something, but you will need an expert to work on that side. And Shopify, it's way easier. You don't need any kind of like basic level on like, you could start like building your website in like 24, 48 hours and have something simple that works well on mobile and is good to go. The main thing obviously is like you're going to be more limited with the options that it has, but if you want something simple, it's the way to go. Both have like a good amount of like users and followers. So that means that they're both pretty established. Obviously, WordPress have a higher market share, but they are both reliable. So that's definitely, I would say that they are in the same level for that. And then finally, just talk a little bit about the pricing. So as I was saying, WordPress, or at least the way that I would like to use WordPress, you would need to just get your own hosting plan on an external website, company, that it would be about like $150 US. You could get something that is reliable. You could go with a free or pro theme that is pretty much the one that is going to kind of create the layout of your website. And then you would have like a good amount of plugins that could be free or premium that could be in the $50 to $100 per year. One thing that you would need to include if you decide to go with WordPress is the WordPress maintenance, or what is also called the web care plans. You would need somebody that updates those plugins and themes and WordPress core on average of like every 3 months or on a monthly basis, depending on the complexity of your project. And you want somebody that does it, that knows how to do it, because every single time that you create updates, it could create incompatibilities on your site, and you might be, new bugs might appear. So that's kind of like, those were going to be like your necessities here. You're going to have kind of like a bigger investment at the beginning, but you know that in the long term, those costs are going to be steady. On the other hand, with Shopify, you could start with like the light plan that is $9 a month, and you could do something really simple. And the moment that you want to start adding more and more features, you're going to have to pay different pricing plans to a point that you could even get to like $2,000 per month or even more if you want to, for example, customize your cart and checkout. So the way I try to say that is like, if you know that your business is going to be simple always in the long term, maybe Shopify is your way to go. But if you think that your project is going to evolve into something more complex, where you're going to add more and more features and you're going to keep evolving and adding new revenue streams, I would suggest going with WordPress. Because even though the investment is going to be higher at the beginning, in the long term, it's going to be more affordable. Okay. So now that we have kind of established all these points, the last one is just the SEO fundamentals. So SEO, search engine optimization, is the set of techniques focused to improving the search traffic, the traffic coming from search engines. And there are 3 main pillars that are web optimization, content quality, and links from external sites. And as you can see there in the slides, I differentiate between on-page and off-page. So on-page is anything that affects to your traffic, to your organic traffic, but that you can do it within your website. And off-page is anything that happens out of your website that affects to your website. Okay, I'm going to explain a little bit more about this. A few terms that are important to understand with web optimization. So there are 2 main terms that are normally kind of like misrepresented, or like a lot of people get confused with it, is crawling versus indexing. Crawling is every time a bot reach your website, they read, they analyze the data, and then they have it in the search engine. It's like they just read and analyze. And then indexing is after they have read and analyzed that data, then they decide if they want to index, they add it to their search results. Okay, so it's slightly different, but it's a big difference. And then once we go with those terms, there's a third term that is pretty important. That is the crawl budget. So Google dedicates a certain amount of resources to read, analyze, and decide if indexing your web page. And this crawl budget is calculated depending on different factors. One is, for example, the authority of your domain. That is something that I'm going to play later, but basically it's measured by the traffic that you have and the amount of external links that you get to your website, the frequency of the publication that you have on your website. If you publish something daily or on a weekly basis, it changes. The speed, the loading speed of your website. If your website is slow, it's going to have a lower crawl budget. And then other factors like, for example, if you have a big amount of broken links or like unnecessary redirects, that's also going to penalize you. So you could end up having a big project with like 1,000 URLs, but if your crawl budget is only 500, you could keep creating more and more URLs that Google is always going to index only 500 pages. So that would be, you'll be facing a crawl budget issue, okay? So it's something that is important more for like big websites, but small websites are really not going to have that kind of problem. Okay, so now we move to other terms, that is the sitemap and the robot.txt. And sorry, it's going a little bit too technical, but I try to make it as easy as possible. So the sitemap, these are two different tools that you use to give hints and to organize the work of the bots for Google. Google likes things easy. And if you do all these things well, they're going to give you a reward. So basically, the sitemap is a list of all the URLs that your website has, and you're telling them, I want you to go and read and analyze every single of these lists. And I don't want you to do these on certain pages. Like, for example, I don't want you to spend time on my privacy policy, okay? And the robot.txt is really similar. You're basically telling them, I don't want you to spend time on the comment section, or I don't want you to spend time on, again, my terms and my terms page. I don't want you to crawl that page. So they're kind of like slightly similar, and they're both just like tools to help Google understand better how your website is structured and where they have to spend those resources that they have assigned and allocated for you. All the things, so we went from web optimization to now content quality. And I think this is the second pillar out of the three that is the easiest to understand. Everybody understands what is good quality content versus bad quality content. But I would like to highlight a few things here in regards to content. So the main thing is when you're creating content, you have to think that Google is going to try to see what kind of search intent you're trying to fulfill. And you have four types of like search intents. You have the informational, the navigational, the commercial, and the transactional. To give you an example, we have it here in the slide. It's like if somebody types download a program to watch TV on the computer, Google is going to understand that what you're looking for is for links to download a program, okay? And that's what they're going to reward. And that's kind of like the results that they're going to put in the first pages, not just an article, okay? Another thing that is key is the semantic density. So what it means with that is like if you have an article where you have the word bat, B-A-T, but you also mention all the keywords like baseball, runs, game, stadium, then Google identifies that you're talking about the sport baseball and not the animal, okay? So that's important to use these kind of like synonyms in your articles. There are other elements that every year they change like the importance, but for example, the friendly URLs. You're gonna make URLs that are easy to remember, that are short, that pretty much describe what you're gonna find behind the content. These things used to be really important for Google. Now they are not that important. For example, the headings hierarchy. If you write an article about vehicles, you have to follow a structure. And your main heading is gonna be, for example, most used vehicles. And if you're going to talk about cars and buses and motorbikes, well, one of the headings too is going to be cars. And the subcategory within cars, if you're going to talk about different type of cars, well, heading 3 would be diesel cars. So following this hierarchy is also really important when you're creating the content. Another thing that is kind of like maybe the most obvious is the amount of time that people spend on your content and how they interact with it. If they do it, the better they do it, the more time they spend. the more likely that you're going to be in the first pages. And then finally, something that has to do more with the search results rather than with your website is like the way your search results appear has to do with the title and the description. It's important to increase the CTR, the click-through rate, or what is, in other words, like the likelihood of somebody to see in the search engine your pages and click on it. So you need to optimize those titles, those metadata, to make it look attractive and appealing for them to click on it. That's something to take into account. And then there are other ways to even improve that click-through rate that are, for example, using structured data. When you look, for example, for, let's say, a Japanese restaurant near me, you most likely are going to get Google Maps results in the search engine with the actual Japanese restaurants that are closest to you. That is called local SEO and belongs to the structured data. And there are other types of structured data, like, for example, recipes or people. If you look for a person, you will see their Wikipedia highlighted on the top right of the search engine. All those things also add to the quality of your content and to the likelihood of being in first pages, because Google likes that, and it will increase your CTR. Okay, so now the final part, and this is the last slide. Sorry, guys. Just has to do with like links from external sites. So I like to define these in a really simple way. If somebody talks about you or somebody's going to give you some kind of recognition, if me, Guillermo Figueredo, that you just met, and I'm definitely not a celebrity, and I say, you guys are great, well, it's good for you, okay? It's not bad. But if these kind of words come from the President of the United States, that's going to be more important for you, because the recognition now is transferred to you. So Google does it kind of like in a similar way. The algorithm is done in a way that if you get links from big important sites that they are adding, like a reference to an article that you have written, that's going to increase your authority, okay? And therefore, it's going to increase your chances on appearing on the first pages on those search results. So there are different ways to get these kind of links. One is simply naturally, you create an amazing content that becomes viral and everybody wants to reference that on their sites. Or another way that is simply creating a link building strategy that is in the gray area between white hat and black hat SEO, because Google prohibits that, but they know that everybody does that. So then what I would recommend is like getting an SEO consultant that knows about a link building strategy that will be able to tell you what kind of links you should get and pay for, because it could get really, really expensive. So you don't want to waste that money. And that's pretty much it. I will send you the slide later. You can even read more about all these in the blog, and you can find more links related to all this content and see a few of my projects. And now, after Mark finishes the presentation, feel free to ask me anything. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Guillermo.
So, hey, Brent, I'm going to jump in real fast just because I know throw a little audible here. I know we're kind of switching topics, but I just wanted to open up for just a second. Does anyone have any questions about, because that was a lot of details about SEO specifically. So before we move on to the second half or the second topic, anybody have something they want to ask real quick directly? Either in the chat or you can come off mute.
How long does it take to actually get found? So if you set up a new website, you kind of try to do everything right. How long should you expect before Google actually, or any of the search engines actually recognize you?
Yeah, so there is definitely like Google has different answers for different industries. It depends on the level of competition that you have. If, for example, you decide to open a business about, let's say, a Spanish academy in Toronto, and Spanish is not like a huge thing here, and there are not many competitors in your area, you're probably going to be appearing in their index faster than if you are another real estate agent, okay? And that's basically because it depends on the competitiveness and how important you are for Google. And they want to provide results for everything. That if there are already 1 million results for real estate, well, then you're not going to be in their priority. But also there are ways to kind of like, if you follow the fundamentals, if you have best practices, if you follow that, And then there are certain ways to kind of like send signals to Google to be already indexed as soon as possible. You could say that like within like 2 weeks, you could have the first pages indexed. But that doesn't mean that you're going to be in the first pages. You just simply mean that you're going to be indexed. You could be in page number 10, but you're there. Okay. So normally it doesn't take long, but it depends on the industry.
Thanks, Yvonne. Question from Shante. I was thinking this too, because I've built several sites on Wix. How does Wix compare to WordPress or even like Squarespace? I know those are pretty popular for non-coders.
Yeah, so Wix, I have used Wix in the past when I was in high school. I mean, I think that pretty much says everything. Wix it's good for someone that wants to have fun building their resume portfolio, or something that is, a project for university or something like that. But something that you want to be, I'm going to give you actually the best answer. If you take a look at Wix landing pages, their promotional pages, they're not built with Wix, they're built with WordPress. That tells you everything, because it's not good for Google, and it will never be good for Google. They know that, but the thing is, I don't know. I guess that they haven't adapted to the needs today. Maybe 10 years ago they were better, but definitely now there are other solutions that are far better.
They're just super simple.
It's just like, again, like for something, if you really don't care about their organic traffic, then go ahead with it, even if you want. But I think that you could go with a Shopify that is going to be even like the same amount of money, and you're going to be having like a higher end look, and you're going to make sure that it's going to have a good mobile version, and it's going to have a good results on Google. It's just like Wix. I don't think it should be a professional solution. It should be an amateur solution, and to start kind of like getting into the web design industry if you want, but not for professional purposes. Yeah.
And it feels to me, because I've worked with Guillermo and some other companies too, that very quickly a business outgrows what capabilities Wix does provide. So, you do want to start thinking about how can I maybe let my customers pay online through my website. That helps a lot of companies right away. A lot of companies want to implement a learning management system. Maybe they do online, as a fitness coach, and she has online courses. You could integrate that through WordPress. So you can really layer on the features you need and grow. It can grow with your business. And you kind of have to blow it up again with Wix. Once you come off Wix, you've got to then kind of start the process over with another platform, which I've seen to be problematic.
Yeah, if I add one more thing, I think that people might be attracted with Wix because it looks like it's easy and it's just a drag and drop technology, but you can actually do that with WordPress. In fact, that's what we do with most of our clients. We create a drag and drop technology. So you only need the web developer and designer at the beginning of your project to build the framework. But then if you want to just like update the content, images, etc., you will be able to do it yourself without any technical skills. So that would be the way I would go, rather than just, because also you're going to miss, I don't know. I just don't want to say more about Wix because it's really something that I don't even find part of the industry. But I don't know, Webflow would be maybe the closest to Wix. And I think that might be better solution than Wix.
Great. Any more quick questions before we move on to Mark? That was a great question. All right. Brian, did you want to say anything else before Mark jumps on?
Yeah, no, I mean, the reason we brought these two presenters together is, getting found online, ensuring that you have a great customer journey and experience. I mean, your website now is really where people are finding you, especially in the environment we're in with COVID still lingering. But if you fix that part of your business and that's really well optimized, it's then how does the rest of the business work? And from an operational standpoint, information flow, payments, and things like that, ensuring that all those things are streamlined too. So if you're growing because of your online strategy, internally the processes have to work well, and building your tech stack that aligns with your website is increasingly important. And that's where Mark kind of comes in and supports the operations of companies and their front end as well. So Mark, I'll let you take it from there.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Guillermo. That was Good. As somebody that's been through the WordPress, Wix, Squarespace, all of that stuff, I will say that right now I have a custom web application that is running. We have our main site on WordPress, and I also have a side project that I'm working on that's in Shopify. So they all have their purpose and all have their place, just like anything in business. And that's actually kind of a great lead into one of the things I'm going to talk about here is that we are making foundational changes in the beginning, or putting foundational pieces in the beginning of a company that can scale and grow with you, are kind of key. And there's a lot of missteps that happen early on. And so my hope is that through this discussion, I'm just going to again give you guys 5 little tips and strategies just to try and implement now and start thinking about now and build culturally into your organization now, before it becomes, 100 people or 200 people or however big you're thinking of going. Or even if it's first off, or even if you stay with 1 or 2 people, like these foundational strategies work at that point. So who am I? I've been in this business for 20 years, 25 years. I've done everything from start companies to successfully exit companies to work in the operations side of businesses. The one tip that everyone likes to hear sometimes is I worked with the FBI doing digital computer forensics at one point, learning how to extract data from hard drives, learning about security there as well. And then also have just kind of my journey through the life has been as more of a leaning towards a chief information officer. And so right now I am a virtual CIO is the terminology for it. Basically that means I work part-time with companies. I help them and guide them down paths that they need. So a couple examples, not recently completed, about 3 years ago, we completed a major digital transformation project within an organization that has now tripled their revenue because of the digital transformation, and has through that process though saw overhead growth minimally. So they were a transportation company. They used to have 3 dispatchers working full time when I started with them. Now they have about 2.5, and they've tripled their fleet size. So that's what digital can do for you. That's what selecting the right products can help you with. So we kind of start out, typically my process starts out with an analysis of the process of the quote to cash, if you want to call it that, and then we kind of see where technology can plug in. So some of the 5 keys that we have here that I'm bringing to you guys today, as you're starting out: 1, keep your technology stack simple. Don't try and use this and this and this and this. You'll see that it gets fractured very quickly. But at the same time, try and keep things simple, even if maybe you think another product that's better somewhere else, but you have a product that meets 90% of your needs, you do it right, keep it in there. Leverage the cloud where you can. So these 2 kind of stick together in the sense of when you select your stack, leverage the cloud. Security first culture. I'm going to dive into this in a little bit here. This is a huge, huge thing right now. Cyber resiliency plan. So these used to be called cybersecurity plans. They used to be called disaster recovery plans. There was all these terms for them. The terminology is now switching to cyber resiliency, and that's because it's not if you're going to get hacked, it's when you're going to get hacked. That's basically what it's come down to, is the government, NIST, all these other agencies have come out and say it's just a matter of time before that happens. So how are you going to react to that? And then lastly is selecting the appropriate solutions for your company. So to kind of dive right in, this is just an example of a stack that I would put together. This is one that I've run multiple companies on. It's a great one. So, you have your website, your web designer, Guillermo's over there. You have your CRM, your accounting software. I love Xero. I know QuickBooks is a big one. If anybody's never heard of Xero, check them out. They're awesome. And I am not a QuickBooks fan. So but Outlook for email. And this is kind of the Outlook, SharePoint, Teams. It's all in that Microsoft 365 package. It is a fantastic package. 4 years ago, I would have said go with G Suite. Google's awesome. Microsoft's no good. In the last 4 years, the value that's baked into that 365 package for Microsoft for small businesses is enormous. There is so much good stuff in there that it's amazing to me that I'm finding that Microsoft can offer that at that price point. Voice is a good one. OnSIP, I love them for voice. They're a great voice company, hosted PBX. I've been using them for over 7 or 8 years. Inexpensive to start with, and they scale with you. Backup is huge. I like Backblaze. And then password manager, we're going to talk a little bit about that here coming up, but that's a huge thing these days. And I've enjoyed using 1Password through that. So if you just look at this, this would be a typical tech stack that not only keeps things simple, but is also cloud focused. I don't think any of these have on-premise like install software stuff except for 365 applications, and even those run in the cloud these days. So moving on from that, security first. 28% of data breaches in 2020 involved small businesses. So small businesses are not immune to the data cybersecurity threats. 71% of ransomware attacked small businesses. So again, these are big things. Ransomware is a big deal right now. There's a lot of that happening. We're seeing a lot of that. Ransomware in 2020 surged by 150%, and then also the average cost to mitigate that just for the ransom is $170,000. That's not including the 18 days of downtime that your company will have if the ransomware happens. And to kind of back up real quick, ransomware is you download a file on your computer, it encrypts everything that your computer can see, and then at that point, the ransomer sends you an email that says, hey, pay us X amount of money and we'll give you the keys and you can unencrypt your files. It does work. The paying the ransom does work. It's why these companies are in business. I shouldn't say companies. Why these thieves are in business is because they know exactly how much to ask from that company to make it painful, but not painful enough to say, yeah, go ahead and don't unlock it. So how do we fix this? How do we fix this problem of all these security things? Train your staff to recognize cybersecurity risks. This is huge. Users are, employees are just a huge threat. There's a slide a little bit here further that's going to give you a stat on that. We like to use KnowBe4. I don't know if you're familiar with that product at all or not, but I've seen companies, Fortune 100 companies, all the way down to single person companies use that for training. It's a great product. Go check it out. I can help you guys get acquainted with it as well. Two-factor authentication. I know that security is kind of a pain. There's kind of this balance between being Fort Knox versus being able to get to your stuff, but two-factor is a huge way to prevent people from falling for kind of a ransomware thing. Use a password manager. That's big. We talked about 1Password. I use a password manager. I share one with our team, and then I also have one that I share with my family. So my son and my wife and I are all on the same password manager that we share a vault between us is what it's called. Train the soft skills. So this goes back to training the staff. 95% of breaches are caused by human error. So 95% of the time that a company is going to become compromised, it's not because the technology wasn't in place to prevent it. It's because the person opened the front door with the keys and said, come on in here. You can build the biggest walls, you can build the widest moat, you can put all the bells and whistles in, but if the person with the keys walks up and opens the front door, they're going to get in. Cyber resiliency plan. These are huge. 50% of all small businesses fail within a month of a cyber attack, says the Better Business Bureau. That means that if you get a ransomware attack in your little startup, half of you guys will be out of business within a month. 33% of cyber attacks target small businesses. 300% reported increase in just cyber crime in general, not just ransomware, but cyber crime in general since the start of COVID. How do you fix this? You follow the NIST cybersecurity framework. It is a great platform out there from the government, basically telling you how to identify, detect, protect, respond, and recover from a threat. They walk you through it. They have a whole small business side of things. We can help you with that as well, but it is a really good way to kind of follow through because most people don't know what they're going to do if they are hacked or compromised or something. They just don't know how to respond. And then lastly, select the appropriate solutions. And as a plug to ShapeConnect, this is where we come in. We find the appropriate solution for you guys for your business. You're not going to need a full ERP out of the gate. You're not going to need a full-time CFO or CIO to help you get off the ground, but you may need an hour of their time, or you may need a couple days of their time, or something along the lines of you may need a project solved by them. You don't need a 100-page cyber resiliency plan. Maybe a single sheet of paper does, as long as you're able to think about it and talk about it. And then lastly, that's where we come in and provide the guidance. That guidance allowing you guys to match you with the appropriate solutions. And we have the experience. I've worked with over 100 companies in my career at different levels and worked with them very closely and have seen how they do business. And so we know what is right for your business and how to help you guys kind of get started. Because the beginning of a company, and even when you're still small to mid-size, it's still a struggle sometimes. People just don't think about that because it's the mantra that it's not going to happen to me. This just isn't going to happen to me. And then it does. And now all of a sudden, all the effort that you put in goes away. So those are the 5 keys. Keep your technology stack as simple as possible. Leverage the cloud where you can. It's a great asset right now at a small business. Security first culture. Don't negate the fact that you have a simple email password. Please change that to something complex. Put in 2-factor. I've seen multiple accounts compromised, and it's typically the owners that get compromised. The cyber resiliency plan. Even if you just think about today, as we're standing here, what you're going to do if something happens to your company. Just think about it. Think about what the next steps are there, and then select the appropriate solutions. Find the stuff to know that that fit your size company. So that is all I have. Brian, go ahead, sir.
Before I go into maybe how to kind of get more visibility for your business too, any questions for Mark off the top? Otherwise,
I have a quick question. So is there any benefit to any of the subscription, like AGV or AVG, whatever it is, or, those kinds of things? Or is it really just the training to know how to avoid clicking on the wrong email?
So yeah, there are still benefits to putting in antivirus, anti-malware software. I would highly recommend using something like that. We use Sophos as a product we use. AVG is good. Trying to remember a few others, but there's a bunch of them out there. So those are all good. Unfortunately, that's not where most of things are going in these days. Most of the attacks are coming in through a phishing email where somebody clicks on something, they enter in their username and password, don't have 2-factor turned on, and immediately that account's compromised. And one of the things that's interesting is that once that account becomes compromised, they actually have scripts that will run that will hide email addresses or emails coming in then. So the account doesn't appear to be compromised to the user, but it already is, and they sit and wait and monitor that email box. I had a company almost lose $250,000 in a payroll transfer because the company monitored them for about 3 months, figured out their payroll cycle, figured out the amount that they would normally transfer, and then hit them about 6 times in and said, "Oh, sorry, we're just going to need to change this routing number real quick." And the bank fortunately stopped it and said, "Something weird. They don't normally do this." But all they would have had to do was key in that wire and it would have been gone. $250,000 out the door. And that was an account that we found out had been compromised, and it was because they weren't using 2-factor authentication. In fact, they had declined using it about a year prior. They use it now, along with 1Password as a password manager.
There's a question in the chat for a startup. What technology stack would you start with? Kind of must-haves, and kind of tagging with that. My question too is for a startup, an early stage, and there's so many different technology options out there, right? And depending on your industry too, there's certain ones like you want to use. How do you, is there a test to put through, before you say, hey, this is a secure platform I know I can jump on board with?
Yeah, so a lot of that depends on the company's needs. So, it's tough to say what stack to jump kind of right into. Things like the core things that I would do with every company I started with. I'd sign up for a Xero account for accounting because I love them for accounting. I would sign up for Microsoft 365 to get all of the benefits that they offer there. I would sign up for 1Password if I had more than one person in my company, because anytime you start sharing passwords, it's just a fantastic product. I will tell you that I just use it personally as well. Like, it's great. It syncs with your phone. It does. I mean, I don't have a password I don't know a single password anymore because they're all randomized and stored in there. So those are some of the big ones. And then lastly, kind of to expand that, that's where kind of we have these readiness assessments inside of the ShapeConnect platform that you can take that then get forwarded to us. So we have a technology readiness one that I wrote that you're able to then go ahead and fill that out, and then we can be like, oh, this company needs X, Y, and Z, or that, you know, and that allows us to kind of understand the stack. Lindsay, does that answer your question? I want to make sure that I answer that. Is there something you're specifically thinking of, or a problem you have that you're trying to solve?
No, I was just wondering overall, like, what should I absolutely pay attention to and make sure that I have available in my personal stack so that I'm not missing out on anything. If it's having maybe that website file backup where if something does happen.
Yeah, backup is critical. There's lots of options there. If it's just a single computer, Backblaze does a great job. Don't think that Dropbox and OneDrive are backup solutions, please. Dropbox is not a backup solution. Can I tell you that again? Dropbox does not back up your files. I've had friends lose thousands of files on that platform before. So sorry, I'm stepping down from my soapbox now. You need them somewhere else. No, and then honestly, the training, that's becoming such a big thing these days. Training people. The KnowBe4 is the one, like I said, that we've used. I've used it. It's a great platform. There's other ones out there as well. What's nice with KnowBe4 is that it sends monthly test emails to you and tries to trick you into clicking on stuff. And when you do, it says, here, this is how you should have realized that this wasn't a bad email. But security and the training are just kind of, it's the one things people don't think about, because they're like, well, I'm just small. And if you're willing to risk everything, go ahead. Don't use any security, you know, but just know that they're out there and they're going to get compromised. I mean, your business could get shut down because of it. And it's tough when you're small because it's not the thing you want to spend money on.
Mark, I have one question. I know that you mentioned 1Password. What are your thoughts about LastPass? I know that recently there has been some kind of like, well, you might be able to answer that better, but like, what are your thoughts about LastPass?
So LastPass is good. There has been some questions about the way that they store passwords and those types of things recently. But I feel like they're still pretty good. 1Password I've always enjoyed. There is a in-depth technical article on their on their website and about how they do things and how they do security and how your data is secure with them. And so I feel very comfortable with the one that they have. And like I said, I've been using OnSIP for 7 or 8 years. I've probably been using 1Password for that long as well. And I know from people that have lost their main password from 1Password that it's gone. You can't get anything back, and didn't save the little startup thing. Like, they give you a piece of paper when you first sign up with them, and they're like, go put this with your passport, social security card, and any other important documents. And they didn't do that. And so that we were unable to retrieve their passwords. So they kind of, so it's secure.
There's a question from Freddie. Are there any dangers in staying connected to websites collecting data?
I would have to know what data they're collecting. I mean, every website collects data. That's how, you know, so I don't know what are you referring to there?
Is this, Freddie, is this like Facebook, you know, you sign in via Facebook to a site? Is this what you're referring to? If you're out there? No. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, data collection on the web right now, I mean, if you haven't, it's huge. I mean, every website out there is collecting data about you. If anybody here does their own analytics on their own website, you know the data that you can pull from just some basic collection analytics. Even just basic Google Analytics will give you all kinds of fun stuff. So.
And then Renita asked about PW Safe. I'm guessing that's
Safe.
password safe. Are you familiar with that?
I am not familiar with that product, so I can't answer to that one.
Well, if anyone has another question, go ahead and put it in the chat. I'm going to put a trivia question into the chat. The first person to respond with the correct answer wins this one. So just put it in the chat. Brian, if you also wanted to take over, I know you want to kind of show a couple things. But what does SEO stand for? Do you have to spell it correctly? Lindsay, optimization. Yeah, you spelled it right. Good job, Lindsay. Wonderful. Thanks for listening. And if you want your prize, you have to email me. So, because I've had wrong information in the past before. So I'm going to put my email in the chat. So just make sure you follow up and email me. Brian, was there something else you wanted to show or talk about?
Yeah, no, I mean, we enjoy the partnership, kind of working with you at Mox.E here. I was going to show kind of some tools through Mox.E and our platform that, okay, you should be able to see my screen through our website platform as well. So, really our objective is to get small growing businesses to the right expert services and technologies for their needs. And, if that's a phone call with Mark or Guillermo or, other advisors on our platform, we're kind of here to help you steer the ship. And that's, we don't put a lot of upfront cost barriers to that. And then take some of the burden off of just finding those solutions that are right for your business, whether that is, somebody had mentioned their tech stack and just how do I get that started? Accounting for your budget, accounting for what you're trying to achieve, we can take the load off of doing all the homework and research. And we're getting some really great vendors on our platform, and they work with us sometimes pretty uniquely to make sure that a customer can get support, maybe can get extended payment terms or something to make, an implementation happen or an upgrade to their business happen. So, the other value add too for us is we like to showcase anyone joining our platform. So we talked about SEO and backlinks. As we continue to grow as a platform, companies can have individual profile pages through through our platform. And then, we illuminate companies, we illuminate vendors, and we just try to foster a business community that supports itself and matches, people's needs and challenges with solutions. So, we've built kind of a custom environment for Mox.E too. And, for any of the Mox.E companies that are out there, you can kind of get a profile built in the business directory and your company profile will show up there. And then, we've also started to kind of curate, different vendors that can help with some fundamental aspects of business. So, these are partners, we heard Guillermo's awesome web design and what their organization can do. I know there's another individual, Antonio's on here with a software company, IT services company, and we look for fit in those, who can help who, and we try to do it in a very unbiased way. So we look at what are your preferences, goals, budgets, does location matter? Some of you are out in New York, some of you in Toronto, some of you in Chicago. If you want to have somebody close by, we can account for those type of factors as well. But, we'll continue to look for partners for the Mox.E community, but, anyone can log in, utilize our platform to initiate a project. We'll try to find those partners for you, put together a comparison scorecard that ensures that you feel confident in one of the two partner recommendations, and then give you the full ability to, manage a project with a partner from an agreement to an invoice. All that can be done within the platform with no upfront costs. And then, of course, you can build your company profile page and have a really nice looking, let me see if I can get to an example here, but a pretty nice looking page and backlink for your business. So those are kind of a few ways to work together. And if there's anything, just time is money. So if there's anything slowing you down and you're living with business challenges, we're happy to help. And Mark or Guillermo or Yvonne or anyone else will talk to you about what some steps forward might be. So any other questions or?
Well, I'm going to put, for those that stuck around, I'm going to put one more trivia question. And you can also ask questions on your own too, but put it in the chat. First person to give me, because I didn't know what ransomware was. So to give a good enough answer that Mark would approve Mark is going to be the final judge. And also, any other questions?
Oh, boy.
Generally, feel free to come off the mic. But you have to type your answer for the trivia.
Be a book.
It's a book, yeah. Don't. If you Google and copy and paste Wikipedia, I swear I'm gonna find out.
Who's pasting the opening paragraph
Right.
to Wikipedia right now? To expound on that a little bit, I mean, ransomware is become huge out there. It's become a big deal, and it is something that companies are constantly struggling with. The thing is that it can be easily mitigated.
It sounds
proper
terrifying.
security and the proper training, and it doesn't take much. It can be something that is not a thing. Hold your website for that's good. That would be a really actually easy ransomware attack. That would be something that is would be easy to fix, I think. Typical ransomware, though, will encrypt the entire contents of your computer, and then also any shares or files that you can see from your computer. So if you are on a company and you have a network drive that you share with everybody, or you have OneDrive and you're sharing with everybody there, it will encrypt all of that data for you. It sounds like for you, like it's doing you a favor. It's not doing you a favor. It will, but it will encrypt all of that stuff. We've seen the biggest ones. I mean, you can go look. Toyota got hacked. They millions of dollars, shut down an entire plant in, I believe, Ohio. Local governments have been compromised all over the place. Those are some of the big ones where they just can't work. Then you get the big ones like, what was the other one that just happened? Hospitals. Actually, somebody died from a ransomware attack in a hospital because the hospital was taken offline, and it was direct result of the ransomware attack. And that's been the first one now where they're actually trying to go after those people for a manslaughter or murder charge or whatever. So pretty crazy.
That's crazy. Renata, you win that one. So come get your prize when you come in next. All right, guys, thanks so much for sticking around. You're great. This was recorded. I'll send you the recording. If you have any other questions, just email one of us. I'll give a follow-up email so you can reach out to any of these guys here. So thank you. We'll see you later.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You guys rocked.